Hi, everyone. Welcome to Unleashed with me, Scarlett Johnson, presented by Moms for Liberty. And today we're going to talk about something that's very important to many of the parents that I work with in the space of parental rights and what's happening in education. We're going to talk about surveys that are given to our children in their schools. They happen all of the time. Sometimes even these surveys will be sent out to parents across the district. But in the case of what's happening in schools, these are usually climate surveys or social emotional surveys, often given by big companies like Pearson. They're Pearson administered mental health surveys. There's a lot to be concerned about because what we have heard throughout the years, that there are questions on those surveys that ask about the family. They'll ask kids, young kids, middle school kids, what's happening in their families. Sometimes ask, how does your family vote? Does your family have a firearm? Then they'll ask very personal questions to children about sexual activity. They'll ask whether or not they identify as transgender. They'll ask a lot of very intrusive and what many parents feel are inappropriate questions. And there are experts, mental health experts, that feel that the way that these surveys are put together and the way that these questions are asked, oftentimes they could plant ideas in kids' heads and concepts in their minds, in their young minds, that they previously were unaware of. And lots of times these surveys are given by schools in order to achieve an end. They have a desired end and they want to justify it. They want to get the funding. They want to expand a program. Lots of times they want to double down on DEI. And so these surveys provide for them the reason to do the work. So before I go into this anymore, I want to bring on the two guests that are going to really discuss this on a personal level. And I'm going to bring on my friend Kim Hermann and Miranda Stovall. Thank you guys for coming. I'm so happy that you could be here because there is a very important case that we're going to talk about, something that's going to be very meaningful for parents across the country. And I know that, Miranda, you're a mom in Kentucky, but this goes well beyond Kentucky. What's happening, what you faced, what you went through is something I hear on a weekly basis. I kid you not, there isn't a week that goes by that I am not sent an email by a concerned parent that my child took a survey and I was unaware. I thought I opted out, but I guess apparently I didn't. So I want you to tell us your story, how you got here, and then we're going to talk to Kim about the legal implications. But let's start with you, Miranda. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. So my middle daughter, she was in 8th grade at the time, and we're just coming back to COVID and getting back to normal at this point when she was in 8th grade. And, I'm in a lot of local Facebook mom groups, and the moms started talking about a new survey that was coming out from the district for 6th through 12th graders, I believe it was. And I checked my email. I had not received an email from my daughter's school saying that they were giving this survey. So I thought maybe I'm in the clear, but I emailed the school just to make sure. And yes, they were administrating the survey as well. Well, I and many, many other moms wanted to know what these survey questions were. Like, what are you going to be asking our children? Because it's a BEST survey, behavioral, emotional, social something survey. So I filed an open records request to just get a blank copy of the survey so I could not only see it for myself and read the questions, but also share with other moms in my local area. And I was denied almost immediately due to copyright.
So they told you that, and I hear this a lot, they told you that they could not share with you this survey that they were given to your child because it's copyrighted material. And and therefore, there's nothing that they can do.
Yes.
Kim, I want to bring you in a little earlier to talk about the legal aspect. What are the legal implications of that?
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, we've seen this across the country for years. And Scarlett, we've been talking about this issue for a long time, but schools are saying that these documents are exempt from open records requirements, so they don't have to give it to parents because they're protected by copyright. Even if there is a copyright on these documents, parents only want them for what's called a fair use. I know that's a very legal term, but it is exactly what it sounds like. They want to use it because they just want to know what's in the document. They're not looking to go out and sell it. They're not looking to go off and profit from it, right? That's what copyright protections are for. That's why they exist, so that you can't go resell somebody else's work. They just want to know what's in these documents. And so because there's this fair use that they're asking it for, it is not actually protected by federal law. They are not actually protected by copyright. And so they should have to give them over to parents. Schools like to hide behind this because it's scary and it is a complicated issue of law. But that's why we filed the lawsuit, because we need courts to come in and say, parents only want this for fair use. It is not protected by copyright. Curriculum, surveys, parents can always get them. So that's why Miranda stepped up and we filed the lawsuit on her behalf in federal court.
So, and aren't there, so you just wanted to see the survey. You just wanted to, so that gives you the ability to discern, can my child take the survey? Oh, it looks pretty benign. Sure, they can take the survey. Or, I'm uncomfortable with some of the questions and I'm going to just opt my daughter out now that I've seen it. And I'm not comfortable with what you're asking. I think that, like you said, that's fair use. That's not, you're not going to create your own survey. You're not going to do anything with it. You just, as a parent, want to know, are these the right to know what's going on, what your child is given? Isn't that part of FERPA? Aren't these protections that parents have the right to know what their kids are given in schools? And these surveys, who is collecting the data? Where do the results go? That's something that's concerning to me as well.
Yeah. I think all parents should be concerned about that. I know during COVID, a lot of parents got a glimpse into, the school day and what is actually going on in school. It was like a little window with the Chromebooks, So, and I think I remember them telling me that they use the data from those surveys to curate curriculum or lessons based off, the needs of the kids or how the kids are feeling, I guess. And it's like, if it's anonymous, how do you even know, which kids need that help? So that's another question. Is it truly anonymous?
Yeah. And it's a racket, right? I mean, like Miranda said, the schools say that they need this data for curriculum, but it's really the curriculum companies that are coming in. When you look at the amount of money that companies like Pearson, companies like Panorama, like Wayfinder make off of these school districts, they come in, they bring these surveys in, they look at the results, and then they say, oh, because of these results, you now need to buy curriculum for us. You now need to bring in all this SDL curriculum. And it's this cycle that the progressives and that the left and that the unions have created with these companies to take taxpayer dollars and to, quite frankly, try to take our kids from us. And it's got to be stopped. We can talk more about the federal protections for these, certainly, like you mentioned, but it really is just this circular kind of racket that's out there.
I think a lot of the surveys are also gateways to bring in, they're a Trojan horse to bring in some of the radical gender ideology, the kind of the critical race theory, the DEI. So they'll ask a question, and I think they're looking for a certain answer that will justify the program that they want to implement. If they want to bring in welcoming schools from the Human Rights Campaign, then they'll ask a question and they'll look at the results. And these are very smart people, and our kids are young. Like you said, some of these surveys went for middle school kids. Your daughter was in middle school at the time. So they can ask a question in a certain way to achieve a certain result. And let's say they started to implement a radical gender ideology curriculum like Advocates for Youth, comprehensive sexuality education. And then they ask kids questions that justify what they did. And they can say, oh, look at the kids now, they're more inclusive. There's a greater sense of belonging. We should do more of this. Or if the results came back that the kids were unhappy with it, they would say, well, look at our kids they're still, steeped in discrimination, and we need to do more of this. So there's always an end. And I think lots of times the end is an activist type curriculum and financial incentive, especially when it comes to SEL and mental health. There are billions of dollars in grants out there, and schools want to get that money. And a way to justify getting that money and putting for the grant proposal is to have a survey that shows, oh, our kids are struggling with mental health. We need to do this.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's one school district that we've been fighting surveys in Missouri, and the parents weren't given a copyright excuse. We were able to get copies of this. And every single week when the kids went into advisement, they were told to open up their phones. So problem number one, right, is that they're having to have a phone and use it in class. But put that aside, they had to answer a series of 5 questions. We've detailed this out and have some of the questions, but they are very invasive questions. Things about their family relationships, things about their mental health, things like, have you ever thought about hurting yourself? Do you feel safe at home? Do you have a safe person at school that you can go to? And it goes on and on. Questions about sexuality, sexual activity. And this is something that you're doing on a weekly or semi-weekly, daily basis in your advisement and homeroom. Again, like you said, what are they doing with this data? And there it was to justify the curriculum that they were bringing into the school. And there's no way that you can opt out of something that's every single day, or opt in, or even know what's happening in your kid's classroom at that point. And so this is really a 5-alarm fire that people need to pay attention to.
So Miranda, had your daughter has she had to take a survey prior to this or after this, and have you filled out opt-out requests?
Yes, that's the other interesting part of my story is I have opted my child out every year since then. And actually that very first year when they denied my open records request, I opted her out, and she accidentally took the survey. They told me that they deleted the data, and I'm like, but that's not the point. She answered the questions on the survey that not only could I not see, but I was not comfortable with. So at that point,
how do you trust that they deleted the data? You filled out an opt-out form, and they accidentally gave her the survey. What if they accidentally didn't delete the data, even though they told you that they did? How can you trust what they're telling you?
That brings it back to, are these surveys truly anonymous as far as gathering data? Well, how did you know which survey was my child's? So I mean, there's just so many little questions that I could pick apart this whole story with. And it's frustrating. So opt out does not always work. I have opted my child out every year since then, and she will be a senior next year. And somehow each year she has accidentally taken this survey. I even kept her home last year, and 3 days later, they pulled her out of history class to make her take the survey.
Don't you think they're putting pressure on kids too, especially high school, junior high kids? They don't want to be different. And so when they're administering these surveys, maybe they're leaving it up to the kids to, kind of say, oh, well, my mom said I can't take this, I have to leave. And that puts kids in an uncomfortable position. Whereas if you filled an opt-out, that should be, the administrator should know that, the teachers should be aware of that, and they should find a way to very quietly make sure that the children that have opted out can go to just a separate space and without feeling like they're being singled out. But if they're just kind of leaving it up to the kids to say, hey, my mom said I can't take this, that puts kids in an awkward position. And I think
it does. And that exact situation happened to my daughter. She told them, yeah, I don't think my mom wants me to take this. And they said, well, you're on the list to take it. So,
wow.
and at that point, and she's a good kid. She doesn't cause any issues. She doesn't talk back. She's no behavioral problems whatsoever at school. And so, of course, she's going to do what they're telling her to do.
So she even voiced to them, my mom said I am not supposed to take this survey. And they said, well, you're on the list, so you're taking it. They couldn't make a phone call to you just to clarify. I mean, they didn't have the time to do that.
Yeah. Or just, take the word of my child who's never had any issues or behavioral problems, So I told her, I said, next time they try to make you take a survey, you tell them, no, I need to go call my mom because I do fill out I'm very vigilant with these opt-out forms. So
Kim, do you think that they are so aggressive about these surveys because that if enough parents knew what questions that their children are being asked, and if they were made aware of their rights and their ability to opt out, that probably a majority of the kids would not take these surveys, and then
it's got to all be about money. I mean, think about it. If we had opt in, how many parents are truly going to opt their children in? So then, the big curriculum providers and, whatever grants or anything that this is tied to money wise goes away. So.
Yeah. And the schools know that even the federal laws, like you mentioned, FERPA and PPRA, right? So we have federal laws for parents out there that aren't aware. There's these two big federal laws that Congress passed, FERPA and PPRA, and they give you the ability to see curriculum. They give you the ability to ask for any surveys, any curriculum, anything that's being given to your kids. And PPRA protects your kids from being asked these kind of questions without your permission. So a school has to tell you that they're going to ask your kids about, I've got the list here, political affiliations, mental or psychological problems, anything about sex or sexual activity, sexual orientation, family relationships, income, religious practices. The list goes on and on and on. But the schools know that these laws don't have a lot of teeth. And so one of the things that this administration currently can do is give PPRA and FERPA teeth. Department of Education can do it through regulations. Congress can do it. I know we don't see a lot out of Congress these days, but the Department of Education here has a really amazing opportunity to step up and give these laws teeth. And I hope that parents communicate that they want that. The other piece here is that not only do schools know that they don't have teeth, but they know that we're in a catch-22, which is why we're in the situation that we're going to the Supreme Court on this case. We filed Miranda's lawsuit in federal court because these are federal copyright issues. The federal court here has said, we can't rule on this. It's a state open records issue. But you go to state court and the state courts say, we can't rule on this. It's a federal copyright issue. And so parents are stuck in no man's land with these lawsuits because no court is giving us answers. And that's why we filed a petition with the Supreme Court this week, because we need the Supreme Court to tell either federal courts or state courts, you have to hear this issue. Somebody has to give parents relief on this and say whether or not this is fair use. We think it is, but regardless, we're even stuck in this no man's land and catch-22. And the schools unfortunately know it. Yeah. And so we need more parents to speak up and sound the alarm so we can bring more cases like Miranda's and get the courts to pay attention.
So I have a question. How could the Department of Education give these protections teeth? What could they do?
Yeah, I mean, they can pass regulations, right? And so they have the ability to enforce these laws. So Congress passes the laws, which is where we should have that, right? We want the legislating power to be with Congress, but the Department of Education has the authority to enforce them. So if your school violates FERPA or PPRA, you can file a complaint with the Department of Education. The question is, what happens with those complaints? We don't see a lot. During the Biden administration, we certainly didn't see anything. But we have an OCR department. We have an Office of Civil Rights. We have an active Department of Education right now. They can move on those complaints. And so parents need to file the complaints, and then we can have the department move on them. And they can also push through additional regulations that say, when there's a violation, this is the process this is going to be filed, and this is what's going to happen when we find that violation. And so, yes, we want all of the different, Congress to stay in its lane and Department of Education to stay in its lane, but they have a lot of power right now to move on these and give parents relief.
Yeah, and they need to do that, because I think a lot of school boards and a lot of state superintendents, and they think that they just have to wait out this administration and just drag their feet. And if they can do that, then they don't have to comply. They'd rather ask forgiveness than permission, and they'll just keep going along doing these things if they don't get anything but a slap on the wrist.
Yeah,
why not? And there's money. I think that these surveys, if there's some sort of financial incentive for the districts, they are able to get grants with the data. I think the data mining is real. I think that there is some sort of advantage that they're getting by doing these surveys. It used to be maybe you'd have an end of the year survey about what was your experience in school? How could we do better? Now it's surveys all the time, surveys about referendums, surveys for parents, surveys for kids about social emotional, surveys about the school climate. And, kids are already having to take standardized tests all the time. So I think taking that class time away so that they can just do these surveys is also a waste of vital time that our kids need to learn. Just look at the recent report cards. Our kids aren't reading at proficient levels. They're not doing math at proficient levels. And yet we're busy, like we have to do this. We should be focused on other things. And instead, parents have to fight just to say, I would like a copy of the survey that you're giving my child. I just want to see what you're asking. And I think the fact where there's smoke, there's fire. If they're unwilling to give that information to a parent, then there is a reason why. And it would be nefarious, in my opinion.
I agree.
100%. I mean, when you actually look at the origin of a lot of these surveys, you can trace it back to the early 90s. And the Bill Clinton administration. And you had, Hillary Clinton and a group of people that she was working with kind of came up with this idea of student surveys, with the idea that you could track all of us. So all of us who were in middle school and high school in the 90s, start gathering data on us, start tracking our voting history, start voting our likes, our dislikes, all of that stuff. Because a lot of these surveys are political, right? We talk about the SCL ones. There's a lot of political surveys that they give the kids also, with questions like, should Planned Parenthood be allowed to exist? What is your stance on abortion? I mean, these are ideally political questions. Some of them actually track kids and place them on a chart and say, this is how conservative you are. This is how liberal you are. And
Wow.
It's telling the kids, this is who you should vote for based off of your results on the survey. And they're collecting that data. And so when you say this is for nefarious use, it is for nefarious use. And it's also for them to be able to sway voters down the road. This data to them is gold. There is, no price tag that they could put on this, because it is just worth so much money to them. And so again, it's not just SEL and them trying to take our kids from us. It's them trying to take America and take the elections down the road. And this is not conspiracy theory. It's all out there.
And Miranda, how does that make you feel as a mom? And how has your open kind of fight for your parental rights and to protect your child, how has that affected you and your community?
I have pretty good support in my community. And, I think one thing that parents need to know is sometimes standing up as in filing a lawsuit with Southeastern Legal Foundation. It seems scary. It's really not. And even my daughter, was worried what is going to happen, and nothing bad happens. So parents just need to know that. And I think really, truly, when you get down to the bottom of it, we are talking about strangers, right? Asking your children questions that you can't see, and then using that data for something else. And so to me, that's infuriating, and it makes me really mad because these are my children. They're nobody else's children. And I think that all parents, regardless of political affiliation or anything like that, feel that way about their children. So when we talk about strangers asking your child questions, it just feels really inappropriate.
So here in Wisconsin, I just yesterday posted something exclusive where an outside group was hired using federal funds, this group, Project Aware. It's a Biden era project for instilling comprehensive mental health into classrooms in a rural district of 1,700 residents, a rural conservative district. A parent found balled up at the bottom of their child's backpack this pie chart, pizza chart, and the questions that were being asked are what turns you on? They were at what have you done sexually? What makes you like? And then they even had a question like lick, bite, tickle, ...
Yeah.
What age was this? What grade was this? I mean, any grade, but what grade was this?
Seventh grade. And so then the parent contacted, we saw the communication with the school superintendent, who said, well, we were told that they were going to modify this high school curriculum for middle school. We were shocked when they didn't modify it. This grant was the purpose was mental health of kids and consent. The outside group that they brought in that does surveys, by the way, and that had a survey at the end of the presentation. Okay, an outside group coming in, and guess what? If I were to ask, hey, I want to see your curriculum, guess what they would say? They would say, nope, copyrighted. Copyright, can't share with you. And the school gets to say, outside group, copyright, can't share with you, sorry. Yet they had access to kids, parents didn't know. And that's at the top. Parents had no idea that this presentation was happening. They were not made aware of it. It fell under human growth and development, but they touted it as mental health. These are the kinds of things that are happening in schools and why all of this comes together. Surveys, SEL, mental health, and kind of radical activists with a political agenda coming into your classrooms, your kids' classrooms. And had the parent not found this balled up worksheet, they never would have known what their seventh grader was just exposed to. Basically, an adult coming in saying, sit in a circle and tell me what turns you on. I think that I'd call the police if that were my child. And
it's just, and parents have
inappropriate. Sorry, Kim.
No, it is inappropriate. I just wanted to remind parents in that situation that you do have legal options, right? Mm-hmm. We mentioned that how PPRA and FERPA and everything, they need more teeth, but there are still legal avenues for that. And there's groups like ours, Southeastern Legal Foundation, who help parents, and we do it for free, right? We're a 501c3. We represent all of our clients completely free of charge. We don't know that this is happening if we don't hear from you. But there are ways to stop schools. And a lot of times what happens, this is what we typically will see, was that parents find out, they maybe get a story in the local newspaper, or they go to the principal. Exactly. I mean, you should immediately go to your school, right? I am not saying to not do that. And then that one goes away. That survey goes away. Or maybe it goes away for your kid, right? For Miranda, it didn't. A lot of times the kids still take it and they've been exposed to it. But what about the next survey? Mm-hmm. What about your next kid that comes up through the school? What about your neighbor's kid? We have to fight back. I know you both know this better than anyone. You guys are two of the best parental rights advocates that I've met through this journey. But I want parents to know that there are people like us who are willing to help them. We just have to know about it. And so please reach out.
And Miranda, you don't have any regrets. You reached out, you're getting now the legal help that you need. And so a lot of parents would think that's scary, or kids can think, oh, that's too much, but it really isn't. It's not a lot of work for you.
No, I mean, Kim and her team have taken care of everything. And I do have that sense of, if anything were to happen, which it hasn't, and I don't think that anything will, I know that they would be there for me as well. So it is scary. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I was scared when, it was like, oh gosh, if they retaliate against my child, that was my biggest fear, is if they retaliate against my child, what am I going to do?
That's always the biggest fear. I think the number one fear that parents have is they'll retaliate against my child. They're already retaliating against your child.
Yes.
By enlisting the help of Southeastern Legal Foundation or Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty or Alliance to Defend, any one of the groups, lawyers like Kim are protecting your child. And I promise you that the parents that seek legal help, their kids experience less of that, because now everyone is like, hey, don't mess with that kid, because they now have legal representation.
Her mom will actually do something about it. So I would hope that parents do see a lot more parents coming forward and speaking out and standing up in the ways that we need to have happen. So I'm hopeful that more parents will start helping work towards the solution of fixing education, because at the end of the day, education is something that our kids deserve, and they have the absolute right to learn how to read, write, and do math. And all of this nonsense and this inappropriate behavior is really getting in the way of that fundamental right of theirs.
And you made several attempts to talk with your school before taking this route. You sent emails, you talked with them, you filled out the opt-out forms. It's not like you went straight to, oh, I'm going to contact a lawyer. You went.
I guess the other small piece of this story is my school district and the Board of Education know very well who I am. I've been very loud since COVID. So part of it is, they knew I wasn't going to obviously profit off the survey. They knew that I wasn't going to sell it. What they knew is that I was going to take it and share it with all the other moms in the community. So.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. And that's what that's exactly what I would do. If I saw something that was untoward, I would share it. And it turns out, though, they didn't silence you. They actually emboldened you. And they should have just, at the end of the day, they should have just shown you the survey. And I think that's what your case can do. That's the change it can make, that other school districts can think, I don't want to go through this headache. I'm just going to show the survey, because we could fight it, but fighting it is kind of a painful experience for us. And we'd rather let's just do the right thing. That's what you can hope for.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And from a legal side too, the companies really don't want these surveys getting out, right? So we didn't only sue the school district. We also had to sue Pearson, the creator, because they're the ones that actually hold the copyright. And they have fought tooth and nail against this lawsuit. Try bringing out every single procedural argument, not wanting to get to the merit. So nobody wants to argue in this case whether or not it's a fair use. The school doesn't want to argue it. Pearson doesn't want to argue it. That has not been center yet. It's been all of these procedural issues about where can the case be filed and what court can hear it. To try to never let us even get to that core issue, which we all know the answer to. And so why are they fighting so hard? Why are they spending so much money on their side to fight this lawsuit now all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court? It's because they don't want us as parents to see these documents. And I can tell you, my kids are moving next year to public school. They've been at a very small private Christian school to this point. And I was asking one of my son's friends, do you have these surveys? What's the curriculum? What's this? What's that? And he goes, Miss Kim, if they do it next year, the whole world's going to know. So I'm going to think that even if they do it, they're going to stop, because all they need to know is that there's one parent who's going to fight and raise attention to it.
Oh yeah, that's the same with my daughter who's in a public high school. They don't even bother. They're like, oh, she's like, they don't want to, they're like, she's out, don't. And they call me, they email me. Yeah.
I think my daughter must have like a little flag in her file somewhere, because I don't get any issues from teachers. They truly stick to, okay, this is what we're learning. And, so there's no more, which I'm grateful for, because I really do want my child to just go to school, learn, get the education she deserves. And I don't want to have to concern myself with all this nonsense, so.
That's how I feel. I just want to show up at teacher conferences, check in, check her grades, go to the events, have a nice amicable relationship with the teachers. I don't want drama. This isn't, it would be great if I did not have to do this, if there was no need for it, because that would be the best scenario. But I think that this is, again, when you are very active and you're respectful in it. And Miranda, I can tell, I am not in your face. I'm always kind, respectful, but firm about my expectations with my children, and not boisterous. Don't yell, don't scream, don't swear. And so, I act like an adult. I want to be treated that way. I'm the parent. I'm the boss. I'm the one in charge. And so just let's work together, but with the understanding that I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me. I'm the one in charge of my kid. So I think when those boundaries are set, your kid can have a great experience in school with just the normal ups and downs without the drama. And so I think be bold, be respectful. And when your child's rights are violated, or your parental rights, contact Kim, even if they just have, even if they're not sure, they should reach out, right?
Yeah, this, Scarlett, right? We do webinars for parent groups all across the country. We have, literally done hundreds of them for Moms for Liberty chapters. Miranda works with Freedom in Education. We do them for them too. And so, as you mentioned, we're here. There's other groups in the movement that can help. We are just parents in this fight with you. I've got a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old. We just want education to come back to our schools, and to say, really, we call it our Save America Schools project. And that's exactly what we're trying to do, and just give you guys a legal voice and some legal education. So, that's why I make that plea to parents to stand up and go to court when we have to. It's a last resort, but you have to know that it's there for you.
And Miranda, what is you work in Freedom in Education. Is there anything that you want to tell parents about that?
Freedom in Education, we are just an organization that was born out of frustration for what was and wasn't being taught in the classroom, really, truly what is not being taught in the classroom, and reading, writing, math. So we're working towards solutions to getting back to the basics, and really making sure that every child across the country has a high quality education. So.
Yeah, so we have a lot in common then. So Kim, as far as this case, this all just dropped yesterday, correct?
Yeah, so yesterday we filed a petition with the Supreme Court asking them to take up this case. We know that they only take a small fraction of cases, but we think this is a really important one that's going to get their attention. Anticipate having quite a bit of support out there from other organizations and other parents who are in this battle. And so, we're very hopeful that the Supreme Court will grant it. But even if it doesn't, that's why we need to bring more lawsuits, right? Sometimes it can take 5, 10, 15 years to get to the Supreme Court to address an issue. We're very hopeful that that's not going to be the case here, but we need to be bringing additional cases to fight this issue and to get to the merits of the issue. Because right now, we're in no man's land as to what court to even be in.
Yes. And because just to reiterate, and this is something that I have seen personally in my state, and I know that I've worked with lots of other advocates for parental rights in other states that see the same thing, that when you are requesting to view materials for these surveys, for curriculum, for if you want it to see human growth and development curriculum, you'll be told, no, this is copyrighted material. We can't show this to you. Maybe you could come in the office, and like in your situation, Miranda, they gave you one sheet with a few questions, and this is a computer test. So chances are they are not giving you that full survey. They're just giving you a few of the questions printed off on a piece of paper. So you're not seeing what you actually want to see. So they're being denied. And then you're told by the school board, there's nothing we can do. Our hands are tied. You're told by, if you try to take it at the state level, hands are tied. Then the federal level says, oh, our hands are tied. Well, parents are they're wondering, okay, what do I do? My opt-outs aren't being respected. My kids are being forced to take these surveys, or they're being made to feel uncomfortable and pressured to take them, even though they don't want to. And I have nowhere to go to even see what the questions are. And so I think that's a great place for the Supreme Court to come in and start to continue what they have been doing, which is setting these boundaries and reaffirming parental rights and the sanctity of that.
Amen. Yep. From your lips to God's ears, right?
And so, Kim, what is the future? What is the timeline that you're looking at for this case?
Yeah. So, the Supreme Court term comes to an end here in June. And so there is a very small chance that they could rule on the petition before that. But we're likely looking sometime next term, which starts back up in October. So, this is an issue that we're going to be talking about a lot. We've built out education. We have guidebooks on this topic. And so, our goal this summer here at SLF, and also, I don't want to speak for Miranda, but I also know Miranda's goal is to educate other parents on this issue so that when they go back into the schoolhouse in August and September, they are armed with all of the information for opt-out, for PPRA, FERPA, and they know how to fight for their parental rights as we wait for a decision here if the court's going to hear this case.
Yes. And then Miranda, what are you going to be doing over the summer? Like your job is, do you feel your job is to educate and empower parents and tell them your story so that they can fight back as well?
Yeah. I like to call myself an accidental advocate because I really didn't know that I would be here one day. So yes, I will continue to talk to parents in my local community and far and wide about surveys, about opting out, make sure they know their rights. A lot of parents don't even know their rights. I mean, I know before I became this accidental advocate, I was not aware of everything that I am now. So it's very important to keep spreading it around.
And Kim, where can parents go to find an opt-out form that is legally the best, foolproof, because sometimes there's some opt-out forms provided by the school. I say bring your own opt-out form. By
honestly,
one of our organizations.
There's a lot of opt-out forms out there floating around. There's groups that put out great ones. My preference is that parents actually write to their school what they don't want their kids to be doing. And so a simple email just saying, my child is not allowed to take any surveys that you would give them. My child is not allowed to take sex education. That's all you really need to be sending them. It doesn't need to be super fancy. So I almost prefer that parents write their own and send them in before the school year starts. Bring them into your parent-teacher conferences so that your teachers have a copy of it. Make sure it doesn't just go into no man's land. It's less about what it says and more about making sure that the right people have it.
So I would add to that to write an email and send it to get a list of all your, because if this is middle school and high school, they're going to have multiple teachers. Send it to all their teachers and say, please confirm that you received this email. Like, ask for a written confirmation. And then once you've got that confirmation, if your kid's in middle school, print that out, stick it in an envelope in their backpack, and say, if they're in a situation like your daughter's, they can say, hey, wait, I've got a letter in my backpack, and I'll just give it to you.
And elementary school too, right? I mean, let's not forget, this does happen in elementary school. We have quite a few parents who come to us. It might be like a 5-question type of survey, but they do get them, especially in that 4th and 5th grade, where they're starting to be in a sex ed type of class in health or PE that they have.
That's
I would
true.
also let parents know, like, stay in contact. Like, don't, just send that first email and think you're good for the year. Show up, keep in contact, email your children's teachers every so often. And really, I mean, there's so many good teachers out there. There really, truly are. So they'll probably be grateful for you, especially in middle school and high school, because parents tend to fall off the communication wagon at those ages,
Yes.
and we leave it up to our kids to tell us things. And sometimes that's how we get in these situations. So just make sure you stay in contact.
That's a good point. And if you don't overreact and your kids know that you're not going to overreact, you're just, then they'll feel more comfortable talking to you. And these surveys typically happen at the beginning and end of the year. You never know when something, but typically in my experience, they're at the beginning, definitely at the end of the year. And just make sure that keep your eyes open during those time periods. Like, hey, is there a survey? And maybe ask ahead of time, when do you give surveys? When should I be paying attention? And try to have a respectful relationship with a teacher, even if you think, boy, we don't politically agree, I'm getting this vibe. You'd be surprised, because I have really good relationships with educators that my daughter has, that I know we don't jive politically, but I'm raising a good kid, a smart kid, respectful kid, and I'm maintaining a respectful relationship with the teacher, and they appreciate that, even if they have a misconception about you because you're a loud voice. Once, I always say I win people over because Midwestern nice, but just be kind of respectful, and you never know, you might be able to win over a teacher that will give you a heads up, even if the administrators or the woke counselor is kind of in your way. They might say, hey, I just want you to know, like, you should pay attention. So you never know. Well, thank you guys for coming on. Kim, where can parents go if they are in a similar situation as Miranda, or if something like this happens to them this fall, or maybe even this May or June? It's the end of the year.
Yeah. So if they go to our website, it's slfliberty.org. There's a way that they can submit a case inquiry. We look at every single one of those. They don't just go into no man's land. And they could DM us on X, on Instagram, any way that you guys can reach us through social media. We will take a look at it. Or they can always email us at info@southeasternlegal.org.
And Miranda, where can people learn more about your organization?
At freedomanded.org.
That's easy. And if you want more information and you've forgotten any of this, I will have this in the comments, but just DM me or contact us at Moms for Liberty, info@momsforliberty.org, and we will happily connect you with Southeastern Legal Foundation or with Miranda, and make sure that any of your concerns are passed along to them. And if ever, we also have a lot of resources, especially at MFREL Academy. We have a lot of resources regarding surveys, opt-outs, and we do webinars all of the time. And this August, Kim, I hope we can do a couple of them regarding Title IX, surveys, opt-outs, all of the things that parents will need in their tool kit as
We were
their
just emailing this morning about it. So yes, we will absolutely be on M4L Academy. It's a great resource for everyone.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking about this important issue. And I wish you guys the best. I really hope the Supreme Court takes up this case and grants the cert, and we will be watching it very closely.
Thanks, Scarlett.
Thanks. Bye. That was a great conversation with Kim Hermann and Miranda. Miranda did what any good mom would do. She did exactly what I would do. She requested to see what her children was being asked when this social emotional survey was being put out by the school district, and her child was young, only in 8th grade at the time. Instead of transparency, she hit a wall. Her request to see the survey was denied. It was denied because it was copyrighted material. Another request, and they allowed her to come in, but they only provided her a fraction of the questions, and they were printed off on a piece of paper. This is a computer survey that takes a good amount of time for the kids to go through. She wasn't given the whole survey. This was a violation of her parental rights, the transparency that is demanded, and the legal protections that are provided to parents. These questions could have and probably would have revolved around sexuality. They might have been deeply personal questions that a parent has every right to know that are being asked of their children in a public school setting. Parents are not outsiders in their children's lives. They are not the guests. They are not the visitors. They are not an afterthought. Public schools are funded by taxpayers. The school can ask your child these questions. You should be able to see them. No copyright claim, no vendor contract, and no bureaucratic maze should be allowed to keep parents in the dark. Miranda and Kim, thank you. Thank you for standing up. Thank you for taking this issue all the way to the Supreme Court, and for standing up for every parent who has faced this kind of opposition. Parents are tired of this jurisdictional shell game. They just want transparency. They just want honesty, and they want to work with school districts and with the administrators under the understanding that schools don't raise children, parents raise children. Children attend schools. They don't belong to them. We are the parents. These are not their children. A school cannot claim to be partners with parents and then hide materials from them. And schools need to be honest brokers. And when they know that there's a parent that wants to opt their child out of surveys or anything else that they find objectionable, they need to honor the parental opt-out. A parent should not have to see a lawyer just to protect their child and just to see curriculum. But unfortunately, that might be the case for you. If so, be sure to reach out to us at Moms for Liberty or contact Southeastern Legal Foundation. Kim Hermann would be happy to help you. So thanks for tuning in.